Good day, everyone. It's John here from the Ohazas podcast. A big Ohazas to you all, even though we are well into the afternoon. We're recording this at about 3 p.m., I think it is now. Anyway, welcome to episode number 73. Today, we're going to be talking about something I actually need to apologize about the previous episode. I mentioned at the beginning of that episode that I was going to introduce a museum that was opening up soon, and I completely forgot to provide the details of that museum. So here it is now. And coincidentally, the museum is opening today. It opened today as far as, according to the news that I was reading. So that is the Nintendo Museum in Kyoto. And I myself am also a Nintendo fan. So one of these days I will go down and catch that place. And apparently it's 3,300 yen for adults, 2,200 yen for 12 to 17-year-olds, and 1,100 yen for 6 to 11-year-olds. And I'm assuming anyone below 6 gets in for free. So if you've got any kids in kindergarten, make sure you take them along. They'll probably enjoy it very, very much. So yeah, as a lot of you will know, Nintendo has been around forever, and they didn't start with video games. They actually started by creating Japanese card games called Hanafuda, and they were established all the way back in 1889. So they've been around for a very long time. And as you can imagine, they have a lot of history that they want to display at the museum. So you won't only be able to see the video games, but you'll also be able to check out their old card games and things like that. I actually remember back when I was in Osaka, a friend of mine, he had a deck of playing cards, like regular Western playing cards, which they call trump in Japanese, and they were actually made by Nintendo as well. I remember them quite clearly. They were made from plastic, and they were very high quality and durable playing cards. But yeah, go check that out in Kyoto next time you're in there. If you're in Japan, Kyoto's a quick Shinkansen ride from pretty much wherever you are, unless you're in somewhere like Hokkaido. But still, Kyoto is a pretty central location. For us in Nagoya, we're actually quite lucky. It's only about 30 or 40 minutes on the bullet train. So yeah, it's nice and convenient to get there. Second on my list here of things that I want to talk about, by the way, we will be doing word of the day at the end of the episode, so please make sure you hang around till then so you can learn your bonus word for the day over here on Ohazas. And let's see. So number 2 on the list, I put out a question a few days ago on X about the impact of AI on English teaching jobs and other English-oriented jobs like translation and things like that in Japan. And I had a bit of a chat with Jeff on the Deep in Japan podcast as well. And he made a very good point. It's not only going to impact us here in Japan, it's actually going to impact the whole world. So he specifically was referring to teachers and saying how teachers all around the world are going to become, not in all cases, but in many cases, redundant, or AI will just be able to replace a lot of the lessons, and probably with a lot better quality as well, and safety. There's a lot of issues that came up, but I'd like to come back to how it might affect us here in Japan. And there were a variety of replies. Some people were saying that, the quality is lower. And I think it was Paprika Girl who mentioned something about the quality and also the quality of our learning, because there's no one to sort of check the quality of things. But, and then with AI, there's that argument that it is self-checking and it's always getting better and better. And I'm not qualified to say like at what level we're at with AI. But it just seems like it's getting better. It's evolving at an alarming rate. It's really out of control. And who knows where we're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years with this stuff, even the next 2 years. I mean, 3-4 years ago, I would never have guessed that we'd get this far with AI. So it's really interesting. My own personal take on how it might impact, or what, will it impact or will it replace things like English teachers in Japan? I've got a couple of points here that I've been thinking about. For the yes argument, I think for certain corporate situations and situations where companies would like to have, very measured data on how well their students are performing. Efficiency is probably a priority. You might be able to input your needs as a manager into the AI, and it can actually create a curriculum based on your needs. So let's say, for example, scenario, say you're a multinational Japanese firm and you have some staff who you'd like to send to America, and they have specific roles and tasks over there in America. Now, you can actually write all of this in Japanese as a Japanese manager into ChatGPT or whatever the AI is, and tell it to develop a customized curriculum for your employees and to develop lessons and to write lesson plans. And you can actually, this, might change things as well. Maybe there will still be teachers, but maybe the end customer will be giving the curriculum to the English school and saying, this is what I want you to teach my employees. Please give these materials to your teachers and tell them to use these materials to teach our students. So there might be like these hybrid situations. That's what I see happening as well. There might be a mix. There might be some companies who prefer to do that hybrid approach. And there might be situations where if the required kind of level of English isn't that high, maybe the company will just opt for letting the AI teach the whole lesson instead of, paying extra money for a human. So I can see a few different things happening with that. There's also the advantage of students not being able to cheat the system, or a teacher slacking off and a teacher sort of not being as strict with some students. Maybe, teachers, if they're human, they're going to have day to day, there's going to be some small variations in there, how strict they are, or perhaps today they let something slide and tomorrow they don't. There's going to be that inconsistency with humans, whereas with the AI, you would think theoretically it's going to be more consistent. And so for a company, that might be more desirable as well. Another thing is that it's just, going back to how I was saying, the end customer will be able to, give prompts to create their own customized curriculum for their employees. And that's a huge bonus, huge. And so I think that's a very appealing point to a lot of businesses out there who are looking to, why do we stop at businesses? You could be a parent, and perhaps there's maybe you want your child to become really good at a certain type of English. Maybe that they want to pursue something like law. Maybe you want to create or generate some customized curriculums or lesson plans on ChatGPT for legal classes in America. Maybe you want to send your child to an American university one day where they can take 6 months of legal courses in a university over there in America. You can very easily tell ChatGPT to tailor something like that and give your child homework, create lessons, all sorts of things. And, I haven't had enough time to look into how well it can do this kind of stuff, but I think it's going to be limitless. The possibilities are just going to be limitless. And it's going to be interesting to see, because at the end of the day, it's going to be us humans who are using this, and we are very creative, as a species. We can't avoid that. We love being creative and doing different things. And I think we're going to see a lot of people using these tools in very interesting ways. Now, for the no argument, why I think AI might not fully replace us English speakers in Japan, I still believe, and I brought this up on the X Spaces session, I think it was last night actually, and I think humans require or crave, I don't know actually if it's require or crave, but we need some kind of a human connection. We seek that out, and it might not even be like a conscious thing. I think it might be programmed into our DNA, because we are, at the end of the day, social creatures, and we like interacting with each other. And I'm generally speaking, of course, there are introverts and even me personally, there are days where I like being alone and stuff like that. So I'm speaking generally, though. We do like having some kind of a connection with people. And the moment that we know that other person is not real, it loses something. I don't know if value is the right word, because if you're still learning something through that lesson, it's obviously still valuable. So I don't know what the correct word is, but but it's going to be missing that human element. And I think we as people, we seek that out, whether we're aware of that or not. And an example I gave yesterday was actually with something that's been mass produced, like, for example, a cup. Cups, we've been able to produce cups very cheaply and using mass manufacturing techniques for many, many decades now. Okay, it's nothing new. Yet to this day, you can find and buy a large number of handmade cups, mugs, plates, statues, you name it. What's the reason? This is my question to you, and you can, reply down below if you like. What's the reason that you prefer something that's been handmade or handcrafted over something that's been mass produced? I think we're going to discover through AI that we value certain things that we didn't appreciate before. I think there are things in human connections and relationships that we take for granted now that we will probably value or appreciate in a different way once AI starts to become very mainstream. And I think things are going to be very interesting then. It goes back to that old saying, you don't miss something until it's gone. And things are going to go once AI becomes mainstream, and people are going to start appreciating things. I think that's just my personal prediction, or what I see in my crystal ball. Another thing is the process, and this is again something I mentioned briefly yesterday on that Spaces session that we had on X. And I think there's something about the process of developing these relationships and these interactions that I don't know if it's pleasurable or if it's something that our brains or our minds need in order to reassure us that something can be trusted or that it's of value. But think about it. There are many ways to make very accurate and quick decisions about where you want to have dinner with a friend, for example. Google Assistant or an AI might look at the history of where you've eaten and the star reviews that you have left on Google reviews. And it could probably very accurately predict what you and your friend would enjoy that night for dinner. However, imagine sort of that happening in the space of 21 milliseconds, that decision. You won't be able to have that discussion with your friend, the disagreement, the thrill of, having an argument, obviously not a harmful argument, but a fun argument about why you want to go and eat a pizza instead of Chinese food, for example. And I think we're going to start to appreciate those processes more. When you go and get something that's handmade, you appreciate the end product that has been made by a craftsman, but you also enjoy, you might not realize this, but you actually do enjoy the process of talking to that craftsman and the interaction and not the suffering, but the work, the effort that goes into producing that desired result, that outcome. I think these are things which we're going to start valuing more and more as time goes on. Of course, in situations where it doesn't matter and in situations where efficiency is the highest priority, I think in those situations, AI is going to be the go-to. And I don't know if I see a problem with that. I mean, we do that now with automated tasks and, like I said, mass-produced items. Like if you need a cup, a really cheap cup, and you need, say, 100 of them for some kind of an event that you're coordinating, you obviously are going to prefer to buy 100 cups at $1 each instead of 100 cups at $100 each. And the lead time is going to be like 6 months instead of the next day delivery kind of thing that we get on Amazon these days. So there are going to be situations where AI is going to be preferred. And I think things are going to be very interesting over the next maybe 5 years or so, maybe less. Okay, let me go back to the rest of today's topic before I veer too far off the schedule here. Okay, I wanted to quickly go over a very important topic, something that I had done a couple of days ago, and that is a colonoscopy examination at the doctor's. Now, this is something that my doctor recommends to everyone who's over 40 years of age, and especially if your family has any history of bowel cancer and those sorts of things. It's highly recommended that you get checked. Now, there is something unofficially called the poop test in Japan, and I think overseas as well. I have heard of people in Australia getting this done as well. So there is the poop test, which is free, and you can get that done as part of your annual health checkup here in Japan as part of the package. And I think it doesn't cost any extra, or it only costs like 500 yen. And as far as I understand, that only detects abnormalities when there's sort of blood in your stool. Now, I think if you're bleeding, not always, don't quote me on this, I'm not a doctor, but if you're already bleeding, I think, it's in the later stages. It's not early stage kind of cancer. Not necessarily anyway. Maybe it could be. I guess, technically speaking, theoretically speaking, you might be bleeding and it might not be a late stage cancer. But generally speaking, these polyps that are found through optical colonoscopies, where they can actually see them, they're not bleeding yet. And they can find these things at very early stages and remove them very easily and painlessly. It's obviously not a very comfortable procedure, the whole thing. I mean, they give you a whole bunch of laxatives that you have to take from the day before. And on the day of the procedure, you're on the toilet for a fair bit, getting, emptying your bowels and all that sort of thing. But the procedure itself, especially if you have, anesthetic, if you're under, it's not painful at all. And the only sort of discomfort I had afterwards was, my tummy did feel a bit strange for maybe a couple of hours, and I was very sleepy for the rest of the day, and I was knocked out by about 8:30 p.m. I was out of it, and my lights were on, and I woke up at about 7 in the morning, and I was like, where am I, kind of thing. So yeah, so if you are going to get it done, make sure that you can have at least that whole day off. And if you can, take the previous day off as well, because you have to eat like a strict diet. You can't eat certain foods. You can't eat foods which are hard to digest and that may sort of linger around in your large intestine. So you have to stick to a very plain diet. The doctor will give you like a big list of things you can and you can't eat. So yeah, my recommendation is take a couple of days off for it, the day before and the actual day of the exam. But if you can't get 2 days off, just getting that full day off on the day of the colonoscopy, I think that would be enough in most cases, actually. So yeah, but my recommendation is get it done. In my case, the doctor found 2 polyps. One of them was quite big. It was almost a centimeter in diameter, which is, I don't know, like, is that big or is that normal? I have no idea. But to me, it sounds pretty big. It's definitely not small. And the thing is with these things, if you leave them there, it's not guaranteed that they will turn into cancer, but there's a chance that they can turn into cancer later on. So the recommendation is that, you have them removed. And when they remove them, they of course send them out to a pathologist to have them examined so they can make sure, whether or not the cells in that polyp are malignant or benign. So that's obviously something you really want to know. So I'll find that out probably in a few weeks from now. But the doctor said, just based on the appearance and the nature of them, that he believes they are benign. So fingers crossed, I hope they are. But anyway, I'm sharing this information to just let you know that it's a very accessible test. Go and see a gastroenterologist. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the English is. I'll look that up in English and the Japanese, and I'll put that here. And you can look that up with Google fairly easily. But these doctors will usually do endoscopies as well. And I highly recommend that as well. I had that done a few months ago. So that's where they put the camera down your throat or through your nose, in my case, I think it was, and they have a look around in your stomach. And the same deal, if they find any polyps, then they will remove them and, off you go. So yeah, get these things done, because the thing is with stomach and large intestine related stuff, in most cases, if you remove the polyp or polyps, you can actually prevent some very serious, nasty illnesses, cancer, in other words. So make sure you get that done, especially if you're over about 40, 45 years of age. My doctor actually said anyone over 40 should be considering getting all these tests done. Anyway, that's all. If you have any questions about, these medical kinds of things, I do have a bit of experience now unfortunately and fortunately, I've had a variety of experiences here in Japan. So feel free to ask me any questions in the comments, and if I can answer them, I'll answer them. Okay. Very quickly. Oh yes, earthquake rods. This is another sort of a tip that I want to give you guys, is earthquake rods. And I'll put a picture of them here right now. And these are actually really inexpensive. I got these for 2,500 yen for the pair off Amazon. And, you basically just put them on top of any cabinets, shelves, things that you have that might fall over in an earthquake. And one end of them sort of pushes up against the ceiling, and the other end, the bottom end, pushes down onto the actual cabinet or whatever it is that you're trying to secure. And what happens is if there's an earthquake and your building starts swaying left to right, without these, I guess we can call them struts maybe, or earthquake rods, something like that. Without these struts, the cabinet or fridge or whatever you have might actually fall down. And if you happen to be, for example, lying down or seated in front of that cabinet, it might actually fall on top of you and potentially crush you, break your leg, your foot. It might knock you on your head. You might, get knocked out. It's a very dangerous thing that might happen in an earthquake. So they come highly recommended, and they come in various heights. It depends obviously on how much room there is between the top of the item that you're trying to secure and the ceiling. So make sure you measure that with a measuring tape, get the measurement right, and order the correct height, because they come in about, I think the model I got was available in about 4 different height configurations. So that's just a little earthquake disaster prevention tip that I wanted to pass on before it left my mind, because that was when was that? I only had those delivered about a week or so ago, and there's a reason behind that. It's actually because I'm finally, and I might bring this up in a future episode, I'm finally getting a sofa in my place, and getting that sofa means I'm going to have to sleep somewhere else. And that somewhere else has this massive bookshelf, which is loaded with really heavy books and other things. I think it's like bicycle stuff and books and knickknacks and all that sort of thing, tools. So I'm going to be sleeping right next to that thing. So I do not want that falling on my torso and legs or head or whatever while I'm sleeping. So that's why I got those struts. But yeah, definitely look into them. If you've got something that's, heavy, like how I described, like that really heavy bookshelf kind of thing, especially if you're going to be spending a lot of time next to it, and sleeping next to something is automatically putting you in that zone, because you're going to be there for about 7 or 8 hours a day, and in a time where you're most vulnerable. If something happens, you're going to be sleeping. So obviously that's not going to be pretty. So you want to prevent any sort of accidents. Okay, before we head off onto our word of the day, I want to reply or respond to Paprika Girl's request for a drunk Japanese story. I think she requested us to share a story where we observed some funny or entertaining behavior, amusing behavior in public. And one of my stories involves a customer that we had back in the izakaya where I was working part-time during my working holiday. And this involved a customer who had way too much to drink. And it was time to go home. We were closing up. And he walked up to the manager and he was, a mess. He was swaying all over the place. He could barely put a sentence together. And I'll try to translate this in my mind as I explain it, but he said something like, I paid my money. I got my receipt. By the way, where's the train station? and it might not sound that funny, but the funny part was that the train station was actually connected directly to the izakaya. The izakaya was actually it was before you even got upstairs from the subway station. So it was quite funny. We were all laughing. Anyway, maybe I didn't do such a good job at telling the story, but that's my funny Japanese drunk story. I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, let's go on to word of the day. And that one today is connected to the colonoscopy. And the word for colonoscopy or phrasing for it is daicho camera. So if you want to go to your doctor or ask your doctor about getting that done, you can ask him or her about daicho camera. Okay, and I'll put that word up on X as always as a little graphic along with the kanji, hiragana, and romaji readings for it, along with a small explanation. Remember, you can always look up all of our word of the day words by clicking on the hashtag in that, which is ohazas WOTD. Hashtag ohazas WOTD for ohazas word of the day. Okay, everyone. Anyway, that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Any questions or comments, feel free to drop it down below in the comments, and I'll catch you at the next episode. Bye for now.